Hello, and welcome finally to the Toon Network season review for 2017-18. It's been an absolutely magnificent season. The season is officially just ended this week. Everything's been decided. So we've had Man City won the Premier League with a record 100 points. Chelsea won the FA Cup. Hazard penalty against Arsenal. We had Man City also winning the League Cup as well. And we had Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid getting the Champions League and Europa League prizes respectively. So it's been an unbelievable season. Newcastle finished 10th in the end, as we all know. But I just wanted to have a look across and have a look back at some of the best games, some of the more memorable moments, and well, I wanted to give out some awards. I wanted to dish out some individual awards to complement the season, and let's hope we can go from strength to strength. It's never as easy as that in Newcastle United. Transfer rumours are buzzing around, but we still don't know budget. Rafa probably doesn't know budget either. We've only made one signing as it stands, which is the permanent signing of Martin Dubravka. Check out my last video if you want to catch up on that. But here we go. Let's look at goalkeepers, and so obviously goalkeepers. We started off. Well, we started off trying to sign Willy Caballero, and we all know how that went down. We hesitated. The deal was seemingly in place, and then we hesitated, and Chelsea snapped him up. Rafa was very annoyed about it. He made no secret about that, and it was left to us to basically alternate between Darlow and Elliott. So that's basically what we did until for the first half of the season. It was tricky because as much as they're both really likeable guys, I just felt that neither of them had the star quality above the other. Didn't seem to be a definite number one, and you know, in some cases that can be a very good thing. But I just felt that both were probably lacking the ability to be a goalkeeper for a top 10 Premier League side, which is obviously what Rafa was trying to push us towards. You know, Rob Elliott, great character in the dressing room, just didn't have that command of his area. And Carl Darlow has come a long way, played a lot of games in the Championship, but he's just prone to an error or two. And you know, in games such as like Burnley, maybe not Burnley. Sorry, that was maybe Burnley. Maybe could have come out. He got scored past point blank range, but I think he could have maybe had a bit more command and been a bit more proactive in that situation. The Everton fumble as well. You know, that was a game he really shouldn't have lost. But when we finally got a player in, Martin Dubravka, everything changed. Everything changed. He basically what Darlow and Elliott didn't have was that assertive personality, that authority that's going to command a backline, organise, shout, instructions, ball, and just lead by example. So Martin Dubravka, plucked from relative obscurity from Sparta Prague, 29 years old, Slovakian international, but basically off most people's radars, including my own and many people. I don't think, unless you're a football hipster, you probably didn't know who he really was. And he came and he instantly gave us trust between the sticks. He was pushed into his first game against Man United, and he's never looked back. He was absolutely superb, and I think what he's been able to do is he's given like Lascelles and Lejeune in front of him the confidence, and that back three is so important. And he's just been an absolutely monster signing, probably our most important signing of the season. I don't think we go on that run after Christmas without Dubravka. And it's just, he's got a big imposing frame. He's positive with one-on-ones, but his biggest asset, I think, is the way he can just pluck a ball out, crosses out as well. I think that's so important and something that we've not had the reliability of in the back at all. So for that reason, I'm going to give Martin Dubravka the Cherry Picker Award for this season because of his ability to just pluck the ball out that are like 8 foot in the air with his Velcro gloves and put the defence and the fans at ease. So well done, Martin Dubravka, Cherry Picker Award. Now on to some defenders, and one of our favourite sons, Paul Dummett, had a really, really positive season. He was the most used player in the Championship last year, but obviously we all know how that Spurs opener went. He got, I think it was a hamstring injury quite early on, and we didn't see him for a good couple of months, so it took him a while to get back in. I mean, Manquillo came in and deputised for Dummett, but we never really had that balance with Manquillo being right-footed when he was on the left-hand side. Yes, he did okay, and I'm not Manquillo's greatest fan, as you might have picked up from previous videos, but when Dummett finally got into his stride again, I think tactically he's become a lot more aware, he's positionally better, because what used to happen this relegation season a couple of years ago and last season in the Championship, certainly for the first couple of months before Rafa had properly drilled him, was he would often just get rinsed at least once by just whichever right winger was playing at the time, and he's not the fastest defender. I mean, I always say he's a centre back, or he's certainly a left-sided centre back in a back three. I think that's probably his most natural position. He's not like a pacey wing back like Yedlin can be. But when you don't have that pace, you need to compensate for it. And Paul Dummett has done that superbly this season. I think Paul Dummett has improved his positional play. He's probably quite cautious going forward. Which, you know, if you try and look back to what Jose Enrique used to do, what Santon used to do, they used to just, great going forward, but, maybe not as great defensively. But I think Dummett is better defensively than all of those players, and even Yedlin, I think he's better defensively, and as I said, if you get the positioning right, then you don't rely on that pace as much, because you're just going to be in the right place at the right time. And I think Paul Dummett's reading of the game has vastly improved this season. He's developed very well, and he's finally getting fan appreciation. He's a player that used to get a lot of pelters for seemingly no apparent reason. When the whole team's doing poorly, let's all shout at Paul Dummett. It was ludicrous. But what he's got now, he's got the fans on board finally. He's getting the recognition that he deserves. The stats are excellent, and he's finally got a chant towards the end of the season. He's one of our own, Paul Dummett. So that's heartwarming, and it's exactly what he deserves. And I as much as I think we should be looking at competition for Paul Dummett next season, that's not to say, I think that'll only push him on and push him harder, and I think it will make him a better footballer for it. So for Paul Dummett, I issue you the One of Our Own award for being a homegrown lad who's constantly proved his doubters wrong. Constantly. And I think he needs to be applauded for that. So Paul Dummett, he's had a cracking season, especially recovering from injury as well. So on to our captain, Jamal Lascelles. He's been huge, hasn't he? I mean, let's look back at the back end of the Championship season. He was putting in very poor performances, positionally suspect. It turns out he was carrying an injury, he was harbouring an injury for those last couple of months. But and you think, well, if he was playing poorly and he had an injury, why was he even playing? But Rafa obviously felt that he still needed him. He still felt he was an important player. And it's again, it's very, very easy to forget that Jamal Lascelles did not start the season. In that opening Spurs match, Lejeune and Clark were selected. And he only came on when Kane absolutely scythed down Florian Lejeune and were forced into a first half change. So obviously Dummett came off in the first half as well, so we had 2 defenders off in that first half, and Kane only got a yellow card for that, even though Lejeune was out for a couple of months. And you know, the importance of Lascelles was highlighted in that awful run we went on before Christmas, when, you know, Lascelles missed X amount of games, and when Lejeune and Clark partnered, we were appalling. We were really, really appalling. And you know, you look at the couple of goals, the very important goals he got early in the season against Stoke and against at home and against Swansea away. They were huge goals. They were both match winners in the end, and you know, that gave us very early momentum to be pushing up sort of 5th in the table, I think, early doors. And you know, he's become Rafa's new Gerrard. It's his personality, his leadership. He's precocious in that he's, you know, the youngest captain in the Premier League. He was very, very close to a World Cup call-up, I think. I think there's reasonable shouts to say he's better or provides something different to a lot of the players that are in there. Players like Tarkowski on the waiting list has had a spectacular season, don't get me wrong, but other players possibly getting picked for reputation alone, which is based on the club that they're playing for. So Lascelles, I've been an immensely huge fan of this season. I think his organisation, his partnership, certainly with Lejeune in the second half of the season with Dubravka behind them, I think that pivotal triangle, that defensive triangle, has been absolute at the core of everything. It's very, very Rafa. It's very pragmatic, defensive. Get the back line sorted first and then think about going up the other end and scoring. And we have been solid. I think we ended up the 7th best defence in the Premier League, and that's in no short part to Jamal Lascelles. So for his crunching tackles all season, I'm going to give you, Jamal Lascelles, the Captain Crunch Award. So well done you. Fantastic performance. And on to your defensive partner, Florian Lejeune. So he came in for a £9 million release clause from Eibar in Spain. And, you know, given that there are rules around release, every contract in Spain has to have a release clause. I certainly expect Rafa Benitez this summer to be scouring and speaking to agents and scouts to look for more bargains like Lejeune has proved, because once you activate that release clause, you can talk to the player without the club, and they can't do anything about it, obviously. And Lejeune, well, obviously, as I mentioned before, quite a violent introduction to life in Newcastle in the Premier League. You know, he got scythed down, he got scissored by Kane, who outrageously only got a yellow card, and obviously Shelvey got a red for standing on Dele Alli's little finger. Just saying. So it was a bit. So once he finally got himself back into the side, you know, Lascelles was injured, so it was Clark and it was Lejeune, and as I mentioned before, they struggled together, and it was a baptism of fire, I think, for Lejeune. I think he didn't have the confidence to be able to play his own game, because as we've seen as the season's gone on, and he's grown so much next to Lascelles, and we've really seen what he's like as a player. He's had the confidence to, you know, he's a ball playing centre back. You know, it's what Mbemba should be. If Mbemba had been playing, if Mbemba had bothered to learn English the last 3 years, he might not have needed to sign Lejeune at all. But he brings the ball out, whereas Lascelles is a bit less technical, no nonsense, get the headers in, and you know, lump the ball up. Lejeune's got a bit more guile about him. He's got very good technique. He can spray a pass long range. You know, I think he's probably the second best distributor of long range passes in the club, behind Shelvey, and probably just ahead of Matt Ritchie. And he's just come on leaps and bounds. You know, when he first came back, it was that Man United game. It was Dubravka's first game. He came back he was in the team alongside Lascelles for the first time, and again, that partnership never looked back. And what he does is he just gets everywhere: interceptions, blocks, clearances, headers. He's kind of an all-rounder. It's brilliant, and he's become a real fan's favourite. In fact, statistically, according to Who Scored, for players who played more than one game, because Henri Save is at the top of this average rating because of literally the one game he played against West Ham, where he scored that free kick. Beyond that, he's statistically, I think he ended the best player for Newcastle, according to Who Scored. So that just shows the impact that he's had. And don't forget, this is his first season in the Premier League, and we're raving about him, and he's magnificent, and he's a really likeable guy as well. I just think he's been one of the standouts. But in terms of just throwing himself about, I'm going to give him the Body on the Line award. Lejeune, he was everywhere. I mean, Body on the Line, I could give it to Lascelles as well, because the pair of them were just blood, sweat and tears. They fought for Newcastle United this season, and it's amazing to see. And he's got the right attitude, and I think he's just going to get better next season. I really, really do. Under £10 million, absolute snip, brilliant stuff. And to complete the back line is DeAndre Yedlin. Very likeable, popular character in the dressing room. He, again, like Dummett, is another player who I think has improved a lot. I still think he's got some development to go as well, and I think, again, like Dummett, he would favour, he would benefit from having some proper competition, because I don't think Manquillo is up to the standard. Jesus James probably isn't going to stay around either. And I think he needs maybe a bit more tactical awareness, positioning. I think he was left wanting on a few occasions last season, but positively, he has the right attitude and he has the work ethic that Rafa looks for, and he is such an asset going forward. You talked before about how Dummett doesn't really maraud forward, but he plays it conservatively. But when the partnership that Matt Ritchie and Yedlin have on that right side is such an asset, and he is lightning quick. So when he does make defensive mistakes, he's at least more than any fullback or more than any defender in the squad, he is able to turn on his heels and sprint back the other way and try and rectify that mistake. So that pace does afford him a little bit of leeway, and he's still raw. He's not the finished article by any stretch, and he needs some competition to push himself, because I think he can be better. But I think he still has proved his doubters wrong. He's kept a couple of other right backs out the side as well. So for Yedlin, you have got the Speed Demon Award for your lightning pace. So well done you. On to the midfield, as I was just mentioning, Matt Ritchie. So he basically split the two halves of the season assisting and scoring. So he had a flurry of assists in the first few games of the season, and that kind of helped us beat the likes of Stoke and Swansea, as mentioned. And he, it looked like he was completely carrying on the form from the Championship, where he's been obviously very, very impressive. But then Ritchie kind of took it seemed to me like it was maybe a bit fatigue. He'd been an ever-present since he arrived. He barely missed a game, barely missed a minute under Rafa Benitez, and I think kind of towards the end of 2017, I think that fatigue caught up with him, drop of form, which is kind of understandable because he played so well for so long, and I think the fact that we were suffering in that awful run from defensive frailties meant that he wasn't fully able to, he almost had to stop expressing himself for the good of the team, because he had to exercise his defensive traits, because we seem to be always on the back foot. And I think that was, the results have almost coincided with his goal contribution, because when we went through that dip he wasn't getting assists, he wasn't scoring, but when our defence started to shore up, with Dubravka's arrival and the Lejeune and Lascelles partnership blooming, then he was able to go up the other end of the pitch. And again, I keep taking it back to this Man United game. It was such a day. It was such a catalyst. And that was February. This is his first goal of the season, Richie, which is crazy to think about. How many he scored last season? He did he's hit the woodwork a few times this season as well. Don't forget, but. Man United goal, when he is going to score his first goal, how important, match winner against basically a team who finished second in the league, that's massive. That result was unexpected. That performance, the team performance was unexpected, but Matt Ritchie's goal was crucial. So he scored then, and obviously he scored against Southampton, a long ranger, as well to make it 3-0, and he scored the winner against Arsenal at home. So they're three absolutely crucial games that he made scoring contributions to. And looking particularly at Man United and Arsenal, I just think since the defence showed up, he was able to go forward more, think more about scoring, express himself more, get himself into the final thirds where he could have more shots. And I think that was the difference. I think the lack of defensive solidity compromised his attacking play. Massively so. So, Matt Ritchie, I'm going to give you the Giant Slayer Award for your winning goals against Manchester United and Arsenal. And looking across to his left-hand side, you'll see the unmistakable figure of Mr. John Joe Shelvey. Now, as I mentioned before, his season didn't start brilliantly. I think that was silly, but still probably slightly harsh. But as we've proved this season, even without the lion's share of possession, John Joe Shelvey can dictate a game. He can run a game. He doesn't even have to have the ball all the time. But he is absolutely in his element when he's got about 10 yards of space around him, a radius around him. And he's just picked up the ball from Lascelles, who's just touched it to him. And he's looking around. His vision is unmatched. His passing range is unmatched, I think, in the Premier League. There'll be a few players, yes, who can spray a ball long. Maybe Pogba can do it. Maybe Hazard and a couple of others. But in terms of English players, and many will debate whether he should have been in the World Cup squad, I think for a World Cup squad, you probably need different options. You need a plan B. I think John Joe Shelvey absolutely could have been that plan B, especially when our midfield for the World Cup is probably at its weakest in my lifetime. I've never seen a midfield weaker. And I think he just brings something different. Now, his numbers might not be spectacular in terms of goals and assists. I think he got one goal, a couple of assists, or obviously he got another one in the FA Cup against Luton. But how many half assists would John Joe Shelvey have this season if they counted them? That's important. And we talked about partnerships earlier. The partnership that he formed with Mo Diarmi, who we'll get on to next, has again basically kept us up. That's one of the major reasons that we've stayed in the Premier League. So it's this, and honestly, since the turn of the year, his discipline that was so heavily criticised has been addressed by the man himself. He's been very honest. He's come out. He's expressed how excited he was to even be in the conversation of going to the World Cup. He put his head down and worked hard for Rafa, and I think many managers have tried and failed to get the best out of John Joe Shelvey, whereas Rafa has probably got him at his best mentally and his form as well, and his ability to be that that pivot, that everything comes through him, allows us to be able to counter-attack on the break. When you've got quick wingers like we do and fast forwards like we do, John Joe Shelvey doesn't have to be as mobile. It's a bit like Beckham. He never used to beat a man Beckham because he never had to. He just crossed from deep or passed from deep. He didn't have to be mobile, and John Joe Shelvey's got that, and that's why I'm going to give John Joe Shelvey the quarterback award, because everything came through him. He was a crucial part of every attack we had, even if he wasn't, assisting or scoring. He would have been part of that move somewhere down the line. Vastly important. Without going to the World Cup, it means he's got a full summer of fitness training with Newcastle, and he's going to come out, and it's going to be a better situation for us, because we need him to carry on the form that he's had. He's been absolutely tremendous. Quite rightly, journalists were calling for him to go to the World Cup. Finally, he was getting people on his side, and people outside of the Newcastle bubble were starting to see actually what he was bringing to the game, the way he can dictate, the way he can control a game, and making other midfielders just look stupid, and top midfielders looking stupid. And his defensive contribution has been fantastic as well. He's tackling more, but with discipline. He's intercepting, he's blocking, and he's not the most naturally gifted defensive midfielder, as we know. He's just not. That's just not his game. But he put the effort in, and that's why we're going to continue to love him, and that's why he's going to be able to continue to be so valuable to our side. So he gets the quarterback award, and next to him, Mr. Mo Diarmi, the most improved player of the season. So since he arrived, he never really seemed to have settled down in a position. Rafa would alternate him and Perez in the number 10 role, not play him in centre midfield, but when he did, he wasn't amazing. Everton, I mentioned before, the Everton game at home when we lost 1-0, he got booed off by some pockets of the fans. That's mental. I don't think he played any worse than other people that day. Yes, it was a turgid game, and we shouldn't have gone down to an error in the end, but Mo Diarmi got booed off that day, and then shortly after, there was a reported scuffle in training between him and Lascelles. And you can almost imagine Lascelles kind of saying, "You're not applying yourself." Was there fisticuffs? Who knows? I don't know. But whatever happened there, whether it was sort of like magic dust in the knuckles of Jamal Lascelles, Mo Diarmi completely turned his season around, and he turned his Newcastle career around, because I think had Mo Diarmi not done what he performed as he did since that West Ham game, basically, I think he'd be getting shipped out this summer. I truly believe that he'd be finished. But that West Ham game was a catalyst for him, because he scored a very important goal, which ended up being crucial because we won 3-2, and he suddenly turned into a £50 million midfielder. It was absolutely bad. I don't think anyone could quite believe it. He made players like Pogba look stupid. He made players like Kante look stupid. Mo Diarmi, we bought him for a few million quid. He's in the twilight of his career. He's not getting any younger, and he just produced a run of form that coincided with a really, really good run of results, and he was just a monster in midfield. He would block, a bit like Lejeune, sort of like a man possessed, just blocking, charging down, tackling, stealing, muscling out, and he started to realise that he has physicality and that he can use it to his advantage, and he really did. He became one of these players like a Dembele for Spurs, who you just struggled to get the ball off because of his physique, his frame, his strength, and his determination. I remember just seeing the last game of the season against Chelsea, I heard him. He was charging down the ball, so that the Chelsea players were passing it around between themselves. He was charging down the ball like a bull to a matador, and I could almost hear his breathing, and he was just going for it, and the determination to hunt that ball down, to track it down, and just basically stop and be an obstacle to the opposition. I just think it's just a Mo Diarmi I'd never seen before, and he's just put in countless fantastic performances in the second half of the season. I don't know. I honestly just don't know. I don't know what happened. Rafa happened. That's what happened. It's It's Rafa that. So for Mo Diarmi, I'm going to give him the Midfield Destroyer Award because he destroyed midfielders' careers all over the shop, at all the top clubs, some of the crap ones as well. But Mo Diarmi, what a transformation. Well played. Fair play. So, next one is Mr. Kennedy, who arrived in January as one of our hallowed loan signings. Rafa wanted him the previous summer actually, but I think because Chelsea hadn't signed Emerson Palmieri or anybody, that they didn't want to let him go, they needed that squad depth. But when Rafa finally got his man, I mean, we saw it was just instant class he brought. I mean, for somebody with so many tricks and so much flair, there's genuinely end product from the guy. Like, he loves a dribble. I thought he'd be very flash. I thought he would lose the ball a lot. He'd try some fanciful things, and maybe it would be a lot style, no substance sort of situation. But like, absolutely not. Like, when he did tricks, they were for a purpose, to advance, to progress, to beat a man, to get into a good position for a cross. The confidence he has with dribbling and the technique is it's second nature to him, and he just impressed me a lot, and I think he's a must signing this summer. I think we absolutely have to if it's 20 million quid, just pay it, because he is worth it. He came up for the club in crucial games. I mean, his debut was electric. His debut was at home to Burnley, and in the first sort of half an hour or whatever, he'd already dribbled loads, taken on loads of men. He'd hit the post from long range, and he won as a penalty. That's literally in his first 45 minutes for Newcastle. He made more of an impact than any player had made an impact, given how poor a run we were on. We seemed bereft of ideas in the final third, and we had a couple of stale results really. But Kennedy, man, just what an impact! And he got the crucial assist for Perez in the Huddersfield game. He got two amazing goals in the Southampton game. That first one, off his shoulder, over his head, slotted it past the goalkeeper, and then there was the team goal as well, which I'll talk about a bit later on. But the team goal as well to basically put us 2-0 up and put us out of sight against a relegation rival. It was huge, it was massive, and Kennedy was just a big part of that. And with somebody like Kennedy, who's so comfortable with the ball, it meant that Dummett didn't need to maraud forward because Kennedy was doing that for him. And Kennedy had defensive knowledge as well, and defensive awareness, a bit like Richie as well, because Kennedy has previously been deployed as a left back. He's a bit more versatile in that respect. He has that in his game, and he's only 22. We buy him for 20 million. In a couple of years, he'd be worth 40 million. No problem. Easiest money we'll ever make if he wanted us to use as a stepping stone. I'd hope not. I want him to come and I want Rafa to build something, but I think we'll only ever be a stepping stone club as long as Mike Ashley's at the club. But that's a different conversation. So, fantastic impact. I think he saw the love at Newcastle. He saw the adulation from the fans. He saw the club at its best. He saw the stadium at its loudest. Thinking about games like the Man United game, and I think in the Arsenal game as well. I think he really liked it up here. I don't know if that means he's going to come, but I think he would certainly consider it as a serious option. So for Kennedy and for that amazing skill, I think he did away to Leicester. I'm going to give you the Elastico Award, because when was the last time we saw any Newcastle player do an Elastico? I don't even think Ben Arthur's got that in his locker, although he probably has. But I don't remember him doing it. So the Elastico Award goes to Kennedy. Forwards. A Jose Perez. What a second half of the season he's had. The first half of the season, he basically, I think, got 1 goal and 1 assist. That was it. 1 goal and 1 assist. I think Rafa was still trying to think of who is his best forward line. I think he was still looking at Joselu, still looking at Dwight Gale. I mean, I think his turning point was away to Stoke, televised game, where he basically played, I think, Atsu in the number 10 role, in a free role, and he played Perez up front on his own, and Perez scored the winner, if you remember, that day. I think it was a Jacob Murphy cross, and he never looked back from there. So he basically went on in the second half. This is 2018. I think this was the Stoke game on New Year's Day. He got 7 goals and 4 assists, so 8 and 5 for the season, but 7 and 4 of them came since the turn of the year. That's the impact he's had. He scored crucial goals against Leicester. If you think about that amazing lob, he scored against Arsenal at the near post. He got the winner against Huddersfield. That was just an absolutely massive game. We talked about him getting the winner at Stoke as well, and he scored a couple against Chelsea in the last game of the season as well. So he's a top goal scorer award. So he's top goal scorer. He's joint top assist maker as well, and we're starting to see a Jose Perez at his best. He's always had very up and down seasons where he goes through short bursts of form, but I think with just more time with Rafa Benitez, and Rafa Benitez finally settling on his best 11, Perez benefited from that settled formation and the partnership he had with Gale. He liked to be a high presser. Rafa wanted basically to defend from the front, which you don't get with immobile strikers like Joselu, for example. That's why Gale and Perez just caused so many problems for defenders. Always running in behind, or when the opposition were in possession of the ball, trying to play out the defence, he'd be down their throats, very like Diarmi. He'd just be in their face, forcing errors, and forcing them to play it faster than they wanted to, and not giving them time to think. So I think Perez's all-round forward player this season has been superb, because last season even, and the start of this season, when Rafa's trying to alternate between number 10, he didn't know if it was Diarmi, he didn't know if it was Perez. He genuinely didn't perform very well. But he has been absolutely magnificent the turn of the year. He's been superb. Tangible evidence for his performances in goals and assists, positive contribution, and in fact, he contributed to exactly a third of our goals in the Premier League. 13 goals, and we scored 39 in the Premier League. So that's how important he was to us. 33% of all our goals came through a Jose Perez. Magnificent stat, magnificent player, and I only expect him to improve next season. And imagine what he could be like with some much better striking options as well. I think he's really established himself as a must pick. So for Perez, I give him the goal contribution award simply because he's just been so important and so valuable in that final third. And the last of this starting 11 awards is Mr. Dwight Gale. So he sort of struggled to hit the dizzy heights of the championship season. I know injury hampered him in the second half of the championship season. Possibly could have easily breached 30 goals had he not got injured. But where he's lacked in actual goals, he, like Perez, has been part of a bigger machine and been an important part of that. Their high pressing, his movement and anticipation has been really important as well. And he's netted against some really big, a bit like Richie, he's netted against some really big sides this season. So obviously he scored against Chelsea, home and away I think. He scored at Old Trafford. And he scored... Yeah, he got his brace against Bournemouth as well, which was strangely one of our best performances this season, but was it not for the capitulation at the end and the last minute equaliser by Gosling. But Dwight Gale has been, I think his confidence has been rocked a little bit this season. I think we need to replace him ultimately, or certainly bring in some first class competition for him, because we need better quality throughout the squad to push all of our players on. And I think Gale needs to be contributing more for the games he plays. He needs to be contributing more in front of goal, which he hasn't had, and it hasn't quite worked out as he would have liked, as we would have liked. Maybe Rafa will see a way that can work better next season. Maybe there's talk he still might be sold. I think wherever he goes, he's got great attitude and he'll do well for them. And if he certainly drops down to the Championship, he will score hatfuls of goals down there, because he was certainly made for that league. And as much as I'm not saying he's not a Premier League player, I just think that we need someone who doesn't suffer from those confidence issues in front of goal. We need someone who just backs themselves to bang a shot in, make the goalkeeper work, and hopefully more often than not hit the back of the net. But I know Rafa likes his work ethic, and he's been an important part of a team that ultimately has been bigger than the sum of its parts. It's a modestly talented team, but he's been a part of that, and without him we certainly wouldn't have been ended up where we are. So for Dwight Gale, I give the Fox in the Box award for his pace, his movement, and that anticipation that really should have been rewarded with a few more goals. So I expect him to crack on next season, whether he be at Newcastle or elsewhere. And just to, chat through a couple of the other players that we had. So Hosselu, limited player, but worked hard and did what he needed to do for the team. You got Jacob Murphy, who seemed to get a lot of criticism here and there, but I think he did all right when he came on. He's one of these players who's an impact player, who he's very direct, who I like. He's very pacey, and he'll ask questions of the fullback by just running at him. He's got a lovely goal away to Man City this season as well. I think Jacob Murphy's got a lot more to give. He's still very young, and I think he's a good English squad player. Like I said, an impact player, and I think he's just going to get better. He just needs a bit more confidence, a bit more experience at the top level, because again, he hasn't really got that experience in the Premier League. But I think he can go from strength to strength. I'd like to see him get a few more chances next season. Christian Atsu, obviously we picked him up for about 6 million odd. Lost his place to Kennedy. Had probably his best game was away to West Ham, where his highlight was nutmegging Zabaleta, which is great, which led to a goal. I think it was Diame's goal, that possibly. And he came up with a couple of really important goals himself, Christian Atsu. I think, like I say, when better quality came in, he found himself out of the side and struggled to get back in. But he's got the right attitude. I think he's a good squad player to have around. Has the pace that could really work against tired legs and sort of as an impact sub, very much like Murphy on the right hand side. And yeah, decent little squad player, and probably quite nice to have around the dressing room. You got Marino, who's came with lots of fanfare, seemingly quite cheap as well, and he sort of disappeared after that winner at Crystal Palace, didn't he? He had a really good game against Liverpool with Shelvey in the middle. He is the closest we've got with Shelvey, I think, to somebody with vision and that guile and a sort of looking to make things happen in a sort of deep line playmaking respect. But there was talk about him being injured, struggling with a back injury. There's talk about him going to Bilbao. Now, the Bilbao link, it's something that I think will happen at some point. But I'd like to think it wouldn't be this summer. I think he has too much to prove at Newcastle. I'd like to think with a full pre-season under his belt, he can start producing, because we saw glimmers of his talent. He definitely has the potential. He's got great vision. He's got very good intelligence on the pitch, and I think he's an asset. He would be an asset to anybody's midfield. And his defensive contribution as well. He's absolutely brilliantly defensively minded, and he, stats are really, really back that up as well. So Marino, I really would like him to stay. I really want to see him push on, and I want to see the best of him. He's still very young. Transitional period. He's coming to a new country. new league, and that can be quite daunting for somebody so young as Marino. So let's not get on his back. Let's pardon the pun with his injury, and let's give him a chance, and hopefully he'll stay around and he'll prove. I mean, noises are that latest noise in the local papers say that he suggests that he does want to hang around and fight for his place, and hopefully he can do that. But I think he suffered a bit from Diarmi and Shelvey's very good partnership, which he just couldn't break up. And why would Rafa break that up when it was so successful? Hayden's been canny. Obviously had a bit more of a bit part player this season. Scored a cracking goal against Southampton away. I think he's a good squad player to have around. He brings a defensive element. He's a bit more of a box to box. Sometimes he's rangy and leggy, and he can get around a bit. Again, I think he is just behind in the pecking order due to his ability. It might be that we bring a proper defensive midfielder in, because I don't think Hayden is a proper defensive midfielder. I think he's more of a box to box. Diarmi can go forward as well, so I think we will probably buy a dedicated defensive midfielder to sit in, just to give us that option and give us that security in front of the back line, certainly against those bigger teams. Kieran Clark, decent. Didn't really live up to the performances of last season, where he played magnificently. Didn't make the step up very well. I think positionally struggled a bit here and there. Really didn't work well with Lejeune. And we sort of just didn't see a lot of him after that because of Lejeune and Lascelles. Completely kept out the side. Whether he keeps him as a squad player or not, I think it's probably a good idea, but it depends how many we bring in. I expect us to sell Mbemba, for example, so it's likely Clark will stay this summer, but we don't know. Don't know how many. I don't know what his plans are, but Clark certainly a decent option as backup, but he's not a starter in the Premier League for me now. Manquillo, I mentioned before, I don't really rate him. I think he's basically, I don't think Rafa really wanted him either. It's a bit like Hosselu. I think they were both just bought because they were only ones available for the money that we had on our shoestring budget, Mike. And as much as he's just steady, I think he's just a solid 5, 6 out of 10 kind of player. I don't think he does anything spectacular. I found him wanting at the back. I think he gets beat too easily, giving away penalties, etc. Just not great for me. I think the last thing, good thing he did, he got that. He assisted Perez for that goal away to Watford, that consolation. But beyond that, not for me. Not for me. Obviously, a quick note on Slimani, who played very few games, then got a ban. He basically got injured, did a couple of bits, then got a ban. He he challenged the goalkeeper for Huddersfield, which ended up leading to Perez's winner, and he got an assist for Richie's winner against Arsenal as well. So for those 2 moments alone, they were worth, had they not done those, they were worth 4 points, an additional 4 points. So had we not got those additional 4 points, we wouldn't have finished in the top half. So there you go. Islam Slimani, still more effective than Daniel Sturridge for West Brom. A quick note on Mitrovic, who obviously went to Fulham. He nearly went to France, I think. Bordeaux was it, maybe, and just kind of didn't happen in the last minute. And he ended up going to Fulham, and he's obviously, well, we know what's happened now. Fulham have got promoted. He scored a hat load of goals. They probably want to buy him now. I don't think we're going to sell him for less than 20 million, which in the current market is probably fair, given that he's going to be starting at the World Cup for his country, and he's slotted right into London. Into Fulham. I think he probably will enjoy living in London as well. And I think he suits their style of football. I always said he's not a bad player. He just doesn't fit the Newcastle way. He doesn't fit Rafa's work ethic either as well, or his tactical awareness. So for those reasons, as much as I like him, I understand why he was shipped out on loan and why he's probably going to be almost definitely sold this summer. But I just thought we should mention his performance because he I think he just reminded everyone that he can score goals in the right system and he does have the talent. So there we go. So my goal of the season, as I mentioned before, is going to be Kennedy's second against Southampton. Basically, Southampton had a corner. It came out to Mario Lemina, who's a really good player, but just had a shocker against us, basically because Diarmi and that just ruined him mentally. He did try like a scissor kick, and he just sort of like did a complete air swipe. We brought the ball out. Perez, a huge part of that. Kennedy, a huge part of that. Gale, a huge part of that. Perez was bearing down on goal, knocked it right, almost no eyes to Gale, and Gale could have shot. The normal Dwight Gale would have shot there, but he had the awareness that Kennedy would be bursting in at the back post, which he was. So he just played it across, and then Kennedy slotted in at the back post. It was an absolutely sumptuous counter-attacking 101 goal. It was textbook, and it was so slick, it was so quick, and it just never missed a beat. It was boom, 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 slot, goal, celebrate. It was fantastic. Close second, I think, was Jose's against Leicester, the lob over Schmeichel, which mirrored the chip from Albert over his dad, Peter. So yeah, that was pretty tasty, and quite an unexpected victory as well, so that was enjoyable. So my best match overall, as it's been a recurring theme in this video, has been Manchester United at home. It was, the defensive performances were out of this world, the midfield performances were out of this world. We scored a really cute little tidy goal from a set piece with Matt Ritchie, Gale just laying it off for him. Dubravka was amazing, but more, it wasn't just that. It was obviously that the old rivalry with Man United, it always just stays there, doesn't it, from the earlier Premier League years. And it was just the decibels in that stadium that day. It was so loud. And my personal highlight, because I was in the Platinum Club, I was right next to the fancy seats, behind the barrier. And I was about 20 feet away from Bobby Charlton, traitor, Bobby Charlton. And when Richie scored that goal, I turned to him and I just give him a bit of this. It was class, absolutely class, lovely stuff. Really enjoyed that. But that for me was the best. And beyond that, that was a catalyst for our amazing run, for our defensive solidity. It made Dubravka the player he was. It gave him the confidence to, for a goalkeeper to go through that in his first game in the Premier League and never look back. So important. And I think players like Kennedy would have just seen the club at its best. The support from the fans was electric that day. It was just so loud and raucous. I loved it. It had everything, and it was so important, that game. So that was my favourite game. Loudest game, and I've just mentioned, that was also Man United. Best signing, I'm probably going to say Dubravka. I think to have that reliability at the back and not have to worry and look over your shoulder at what the goalkeeper's doing or what he might do. You look at Liverpool, you look at Karius in that Champions League final. Even leading up to that, he might have had a couple of good games, but he still had mistakes in his locker, and I just don't think Dubravka has that. Dubravka's a better goalkeeper than Loris Karius. He just is. He just is. He doesn't make those errors. He's so reliable plucking a ball out, as I said. I just think he's the best signing for us, most important. I think Kennedy's a close second. And because of the impact that he had on our attacking third, which I think had been lacking before January. And then Lejeune, I think, third. But Lejeune, I mean, I could mix those up in any order on any other day of the week. So they've all been fantastic signings. But I think Dubravka was just so important that we finally nailed down a goalkeeper that just works, that got it, and brought exactly what we need in terms of communication and organisation. Biggest injustice of the season, I still think it was that Spurs opener. I think the Kane tackle, I think that the decision to send John Joe Shelvey off, I think was immensely harsh. And, you know, had we not got those 2 injuries as well in the first half, you know, we were 0-0 up until Shelvey got sent off, and then they ended up winning 2-0. That still annoys me. Maybe Brighton away. I think we got a couple of kicks to the face which weren't addressed. Harry Maguire pushing Gale in the face, and he didn't get a red card for that. Yeah, a few injustices. And talking about injustices, we usually don't get penalties, but I'm going to say the biggest ironic cheer of the season came when we finally won a penalty when Kennedy got brought down again at home to Burnley. Obviously, only for Hosselu to end up missing the penalty that we've been waiting for so long. So yeah, that wasn't great, but you can probably see the funny side of it now. Worst performance, I'd probably say Watford at home. We just got spanked 3-0. It was awful. And usually when we lost, you could always pick out, well, we had a good first half, or we were much better in the second half, but we just didn't get around to, we just couldn't put the ball in the net. Or like against Watford at home, we were just terrible from start to finish. It was appalling. So yeah, that's going to be mine. Quickly, best away performance, as I mentioned, West Ham. I think that was in a similar way also a catalyst. It was an unexpected win in London. There used to be a London hoodoo, didn't it, where we used to rarely get a win in London. And I think even the same now, you very rarely pick them up, but that game showed so much character for us. It was the turning point for Diarmi, and just a crucial win. We saw Save's amazing one-game cameo that puts him at the top of all the player ratings. It was fantastic, and by all accounts, from people I know who were there, it was just an amazing away end as well. So fantastic. And the best home performance, not even going to say Man United, not even going to say Arsenal. I think it was Chelsea last game of the season. Honestly, think we absolutely dicked them. We were fantastic. We played Chelsea off the park, last year's Premier League winners. So that was the last year's Championship winners playing last year's Premier League winners off the park. They were awful. We were brilliant, and that was an amazing day as well. That's probably a close second to best game of the season, because it obviously meant that we definitely finished in 10th. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. It's been about an hour now, so thank you so much for all your support, all your views, all your comments over the course of last season. I've absolutely loved it. There'll be more videos throughout the summer. I'll do a few match reports for the England games as well. There might only be 3 if we don't get out of the group. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Get the notifications up when the new videos come as well, so you can be first to see those. I'm on iTunes and SoundCloud. Forget what I'm saying now. Obviously on Facebook and Twitter. Please check us out there. On Twitter, we're at The Two Network. There'll be loads more to come. I've really enjoyed your support. Sorry the season review's been so late. You might not be interested anymore, but it's there when you get really bored during the summer when there's no football, or you're waiting for the World Cup to start, or it's the World Cup's finished and you've got a couple of weeks left to wait and you want to get back into the swing of things with all things Newcastle United. Every time we sign a player, I'll put a video out as well and give you some reaction to that as well. Anyway, I've been Adam of The Two Network. This has been the Two Network season review for 2017-18 for Newcastle United, and I'll see you soon. Cheers everyone. Bye-zy bye.